Welcome, 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 grade 10s, to yet another fun-filled plant biology lesson. And I know I always say plant, you go plant, right? But yay, if we are positive, plants are fun. Okay, we're going to go straight into the work. We're going to look at, now, when we looked at our different tissues, okay, we last week, the last couple of weeks actually, what you need to see where we are going to. We are building grade 10, we're building the foundations, and we're looking how that building is starting to grow. So we started with cells, and then we looked at tissues, and then we looked at organs. And first of all, we started with the plant. So we looked at a root, we looked at a stem, and we looked at a leaf. Okay, now we need to put those things together. And if we put my root, my stem, and my leaf, one of the functions of a plant is to transport water. Now you guys are also going to look at the transport system of humans. You're going to look at the heart, you're going to look at the blood, you're going to look at blood vessels, and all of that was all cells and tissues that you looked at. So we start with the little basics. We start to build up and we build up. So what we're going to look at this week, and you please make sure that you have your textbooks in front of you, you have your notes from the last week, because you're going to see everything that we've done in the last few episodes, we're now going to put together, right, to perform this whole system that a plant needs to be able to do. And what are we going to concentrate on? As you can see, we're going to see how water, right, is going to move through a plant. So when we look at transport of water, right, through a plant, look what we have in front of us. These two words over here. Water is going to move by two processes. It's going to be moved by osmosis and diffusion. Now I'm just going to give you a quick minute, because these are two terms that we looked at when we looked at the cell. And I want you to quickly give me the definition of each of them. Now remember, they're not the same. Similar, but not the same. 1 minute, and then we're going to see if you aced it. Okay, your 1 minute starts now. Hi guys, were you able to get that fine line between what the difference is between diffusion and osmosis? They're really important terms that you should know by now, especially I'm sure your teacher really crammed it into you to get it right when you did the cell. Okay, diffusion. The diffusion now, I'm going to write it out because I want you to be able to know the difference between diffusion and osmosis. Diffusion, right, we need to start with a pen. Always a good start. Oh, I don't like brown. Movement of substances. All right. There we go. Movement of substances. That's the first thing. From a high concentration, I'm going to use a bit of abbreviation, okay, to a low concentration. And we know until equilibrium is met. Okay, so movement of substances. Osmosis, right, is the movement, I'm pressing the wrong button, I see again, movement of water, right, water, from a high concentration again concentration gradient. Guys, from high to low. Don't need too much energy to that. Low concentration. Here comes the next key. Through a semi-permeable. Your teacher might have used selectively permeable or differentially. Semi-permeable membrane. So what we're talking about here, a cell membrane, okay, until equilibrium. I'm not going to write all of that out, it's a waste. So you need to understand, diffusion, we do not have to cross a cell membrane, okay, and it can be gases, it can be liquids. Where we look at water, osmosis. Osmosis is the movement of water from a high concentration to a low concentration, but we must pass through, all right, the cell membrane. Now, when I'm looking at the transport of water, have a look at this diagram over here. This is a nice way. If you can look at this diagram and tell a story about what you are seeing, then you are able to understand the process. Okay, so you will see it's numbered from 1 through to 7. But what are we looking at? It's in very simple terms is water needs to come into the root. Now you guys are going to need to think about, right? Last week we looked at the internal structure of the root. So you are going to need to use last week's, all right, notes. When water moves into a root, where does it need to go? It needs to go up the stem. So water comes into the root. What is a root? There's a root hair, right? And as soon as water goes into a root hair, that is a membrane. And as soon as it crosses a membrane, right, that is osmosis. Then what does water have to do? It needs to go up the stem. So we've gone into the root, traveled through all the cells of the root, got to the xylem, right? When I get to the xylem, what am I aiming for? I'm going up to the leaf. So this is the new part. How on earth is water going to defy gravity and go up to the leaf? When it gets to the leaf, what do I need that water for? The reason I needed water for was for photosynthesis, right? Which you're going to look at next year when you're in grade 11. Water is one of the components that we need for photosynthesis. So what happens to the rest of the water? The rest of the water is going to leave the plant, and it leaves through the leaves through a process of diffusion, because it doesn't cross a membrane, it goes through, all right, a space. Can you remember the holes that we made? The stomata. Now you need to keep that process in mind. Through the roots, up to the leaves, all right, up the stem, up to the leaves. When it gets to the leaf, lots of the water that we've got we don't need, so we're going to get rid of. Okay, so let's start. Where do we start? We need to start with the roots. So if I put this diagram up on the screen, you should recognize it automatically, because we did it last week when we looked at the internal structure of the root. What are we looking at? We're looking at a cross section. What does a cross section mean? I've taken the root and I've cut it down, or even longitudinal section. I've cut it down or I've cut it across, and I'm looking to see what's inside. Okay, so you would notice that there are two distinct lines right on this diagram. Water is going to move from the root hair. Let me say blue. This is water. And where does it need to go? What does xylem begin with? X. We need to get it from outside to. Now if you can see there's two different, there's a red and a blue line. Now that red and blue line shows you the different paths that water can take. Now, if you were water, what path would be the easiest for you? Now if I have a look at the cells, look at the blue line, look how nice, and the blue line is my Jippo line. Have a look. I don't go through the cells, I go through all the spaces. Okay, and spaces are quicker. In between all the parenchyma, right, I travel. That's by diffusion. I can travel in all the spaces. Because what do I want to do? I want to get as much water in as I can. Or, what else do I do? Other water travels through the cells. So if it travels from the root hair, from cell to cell, what does it cross? It crosses a cell membrane. So it goes from a high to a low. Then that fills up with water. High to low. High to low. And in doing so, we travel across the whole layers, right, of the root. Go into my root hair. I go through my cortex, which is made up of parenchyma. What do I get? These epidermis or endodermis strips. Remember, we spoke about the Casparian strips, about the wax. We don't want to go around, we have to go through, forcing it through, because what do I find right underneath that? I find my nice big hollow xylem. Okay, so when we come to the roots, you need to, if you haven't from last week learned the external or the internal structure of the root, then you're going to battle with this section. Have you seen how we've built on? We've looked at tissues, then we looked at organs, and now we're looking at, I put all of these organs together because I'm going to do some work. Okay, so this diagram should have been, you should have been able to recognize it from the diagram that we did last week. Now we get to the stem. Now water has to go up the stem. Now if you can see over here in the diagram, there's only, all right, there are two tissues that are labeled on this diagram. It's going to be the phloem and it's going to be the xylem. Now I want to move water, all right? And who is water's best friend? It's going to be the xylem. Now guys, this section here is a very good, when we get to the xylem, a very important question that you need to be able to answer is, how is xylem adapted to perform its function? Okay, and what do I mean by function? Function means to transport water up the stem. Xylem needs to transport water. Here is a xylem vessel over here. Okay, how is the xylem made so that it can carry water? Right? Remember, structure versus function. Let's have a look at the xylem vessel. What's the first thing for me when I think of xylem? I always want you to think of a straw. Okay? I want you to think of a straw. And a straw is hollow. It would be very difficult for you to suck up your cool drink, which is all water. And if there were, right, what would happen if there was something stuck in it? Now, I'd be trying to get to the water and nothing would be coming out. So first of all, what do? I make sure, all right, I make sure that it is hollow so that the water can go through. Then what do? Okay, I also need to make sure that it's strong because the forces of water are quite powerful. So what do I do to it? All right, I thicken it with lengthen. I make it hollow and I make it thick. Right? On the outside, not on the inside. What else do? I make it continuous. Can you see here? From the top, right, to the bottom, it's one long hollow strand. Okay. Then what else do I have? On the sides, I've got these little pits. And these little pits, what do? They make sure that as I go up the water goes to the side. When I get in a lift, I can't only go to the top floor, right? I've got to go there, I've got to go there, I've got to go there, and I've got to go to the next floor. So xylem, the structure of xylem, enables it to make sure that it can carry water properly. Okay, we're going to go for a quick break, and then we come back. We're going to have a look at how water defies gravity and goes up the stem. See you now. Okay, welcome back, guys. You have that usual stretch, get the muscles going, you get the blood flowing. Okay, so we left you with this last concept. Water now is coming through the root. Let's quickly have a look. Remember, let's go two steps back. Water is now moved through the root. It's now in the xylem, these hollow vessels, these long hollow vessels. And if you can imagine the tallest tree, we have to get this water from the top, right, from the bottom to the top. And it's in something hollow, and we have to go against gravity. How are we going to get the water up to the top? Okay, that, and as soon as there we go. Guys, there are three forces. There are three forces that are going to help me move, right, the water up the stem. Now, the most important one that we're going to look at is transpiration or pull. But I do want to mention the other two to you, okay, just so that you have a frame of reference. Now, I'm going to draw a diagram. I'm going to actually use this diagram on the side over here, okay, to show what we want to use. Okay. Now, imagine you are a plant. Okay, let's draw a plant. Okay, let's draw the xylem. Okay, there we go. And here we've got the roots coming in here, and then we've got the leaf. So it pretty much looks like that. Now the first one is root pressure. Now the first one, if we have a look here, is root pressure. What does root pressure mean? Root pressure means if water moves into my root, all right? If I've got enough water, and where does water move? From a high concentration to a low concentration. You can't just stop moving, okay? So if there's lots of water in the soil, the water will just keep moving into the root, okay? And what does it do? It goes through the root and it goes into the xylem. Now, what's behind it? More water, right? So it's got pressure. So the water keeps on moving in. When it gets to the xylem, all right, water has no other option because it's got all these other, imagine being at a concert or something and you're all trying to get to the same thing and there's a jam. That's exactly what's going to happen. So there's like this pressure from behind, right? And maybe the only way that you can go to get rid of this pressure is to go upwards. Okay, and that's exactly what's happening. So the water's moving in by osmosis, and it's coming to the xylem, and there's more. The water's coming in, it's coming in. Where can the water go? The water can start going upwards, all right? So that's root pressure. It starts going up. The next one is capillarity. Now, capillarity is a word that some of you have no idea what it is. But I can promise you, every single one of you have tried it before. How many of you have taken your straw, put your finger over the top of your straw, pulled your straw out like a magic trick to show your cold drink is stuck in your straw? That is capillarity. Because what are you doing? Your straw is hollow. It's the xylem. But as soon as you put some pressure on the top, what does it start to do? It starts to suck the water into your straw. Okay? So capillarity, when the water's going up, the pressure from the top of the plant also, all right, starts to suck it up into the xylem. Okay, so those are the first two. But the strongest, the most influential pull is going to be from the leaf itself. Okay, now, this diagram over here, the yellow and the red one, shows us shows us the two properties of water, all right, that make this movement, right, against gravity so important. Water has two properties. It has more than that, but the two that we're going to look at. It is cohesive and it is adhesive. What does that mean? When I say cohesive and adhesive, what am I talking about? Okay, simple explanation. When you climb out of your bath and you climb out of the shower, are you dry? Nope, you are wet. Why? First of all, why are you wet? Because the water molecules are stuck to you, right? They stick to things. Water sticks to things. So when you get out the shower, right, water is stuck to you. So in the xylem, okay, guys, what's happening? All the water's coming in, root pressure, right, has to go up, capillarity saying, hi guys, come on up, right? What are they doing? They're hugging the xylem. They're sticking to the xylem, okay, because they are adhesive. Adhesive means they stick to it. Okay, now look what we've got here. Water is also cohesive. It sticks to each other. Okay, the water molecules stick to each other. So this is a little chain over here. So imagine I've got water at my root, and what is it formed? They're sticky. Water sticks to each other. Okay, so it's like those little magnets. So at the top of the plant, if water moves out of the plant, it's like a chain. What does it do? It pulls the next molecule with it. Why? Because water sticks together and it sticks to the xylem. So imagine all these water molecules, they stuck to the xylem, all right, and they stuck to each other, and the only way they can go is they're being pulled upwards. So that's how we call transpirational pull, right? They've been pulled up from the leaf and they stick to the xylem, they stick together, and the only way they can go is upwards. And we call that transpirational pull. Okay, so now water needs to get to the leaf. I have given you this diagram before, so I'm going to give you only 1 minute for you to quickly label what the internal structure of the leaf looks like. Okay, 1 minute starts now. Are you frantically writing? Don't worry, okay, don't stress. We're going to go over it now. We're going to go through each of the labels. I'm not going to follow the number order. I want to follow the order in which we're looking at now. Okay, so what has happened? We've just said that the xylem brings the water up the stem, okay, those three forces, root pressure, capillarity, all right, and what else the last one? Transpirational pull, which means that now the water's up here, it's bring up to the leaf. So when we look at our diagram, this is where the water comes from. Okay, because what is this? Right, number 5, that is xylem. And as I said to you, why do we need water? We need water for photosynthesis to take place. And if we look at the cells, right, the water is going to move out and it needs to go to the cells where photosynthesis is going to take place. And the cells responsible for photosynthesis are primarily these number 2 cells, palisade, mesophyll, and its little partner over here, the round ones, the spongy mesophyll. Okay, remember mesophyll last week meant middle. Now, that's the water. Now it's at my palisade mesophyll and my spongy mesophyll. But what we also said to you was that a lot of the water, look at the arrows, look here, is going to find its way out. And you're going to have to think about what that process is called and define it. So the water is going to go out. Now, when it goes out, right, then the water is gone. What have we done? It's been transported. It's come into the root, gone up the stem, it's gone into the leaf. We've used it for photosynthesis, and the rest I don't need, so I get rid of it. Okay, so that is how we're going to transport it through. So what is my leaf? My outstanding labels. I hope you had upper epidermis. Remember, it's a dorsiventral leaf. It has a top and a bottom, right? And here, this one's number 7. Okay, those are the stomata. Number 8 is pointing to the phloem. And number 3 is any kind of air chamber. Sorry, air chamber. This arrow now is important because I can hope you remember these diagrams. Do you see how all of these come back to bite you in the bum, okay? You think you're over and done with all these stomata when you did the leaf, and then you need to do it again. So when the water, right, this water comes up to the leaf, right, what do we need to do? We need to get rid of it. Now remember, the epidermis of the leaf had these special cells, the stomata, all right, the stomata. These are called stomata. What does the stomata do? It can open, all right, or it can close. As you can see at the bottom here, it can open and close. So when it's open, things can move in and out. Right, now when it moves out with the water, one of the things that are going to move out of the plant. The water is going to move out of the plant. Now, water moving out of the plant is called transpiration. But I want you to give me the proper definition for transpiration. You have 1 minute. It's an essential concept. You need to know the term. 1 minute to give me a good biological definition. Your time starts now. Okay guys, it's very important that you know the definition of transpiration. Okay, transpiration is the movement of water. Right, now listen carefully. Often maybe your teacher might want you to concentrate on this, but we usually use the word from aerial parts of a plant. Okay, so what they're saying to you, it doesn't occur underground. It's going to occur, a stem can also, right, sometimes lose water. So we're saying it's the loss, I'm actually going to say the loss of water rather than that. There we go, sorry, I'm going to say the loss because then it just makes more sense. The loss of water from the aerial parts of a plant, this is the important part, in the form of water vapor. Okay, which means it's a gas. Okay, so let's go to this next one over here. If water comes out here, it's in the form of a gas, and it does not move past a cell membrane. It doesn't. It comes out of a hole, right? Then transpiration is a type of diffusion. Right, transpiration is a type of diffusion. You're also going to, another one, a word that you need to become familiar with is guttation. Guttation. Right, and guttation is when a plant loses water, right, in the form of water droplets. Okay, not through stomata. So sometimes a leaf, right, has openings on the side here. They are called hydothodes. And if a leaf, if it needs to lose a lot more water than by transpiration, right, it can form these little water droplets when it's very humid, right, or there's maybe too much soil, water in the soil, right, guttation can occur. It also usually occurs at night, whereas transpiration usually occurs during the day. Okay, so guys, when it comes to transpiration, please, very important, know that definition. We're going to go to have a quick little break, and then when we come back, let's see what kind of questions we can ask you on this section. See you just now. Okay guys, when we're looking at the next section, should I say, we're going to be looking at the next module is going to be transpiration. We're going to take this process of transpiration and we're going to look at it far more clearer. So before we start off with the questions, I just want you to understand that transpiration the rate of it, how fast or how quickly transpiration occurs can depend on, right, what the outside environment is. So when we look at transpiration, I want you to try and remember us for the next section, because these, I think some of the questions in here, I have asked a few on transpiration, but when we look at the whole, especially look at transpiration experiments, we can look at those in greater detail. These are the things that you're going to have to keep in mind. Okay, so I'm going to go over them quickly, but we are going to recap when we look at the experiments. When it's temperature, when it is hot, right, when I tell my class, I say to them, they must remember that transpiration is like plant sweat, okay, because that's what it is. It's the plant getting rid, right, of this water vapor. So if you think of what you would do on these certain conditions, probably the plant is going to be able to do the same. So when it's really hot, right, what happens? Heat, okay, let's put the leaf over here, and you've got lots of water here, and it's hot outside. What do you think is going to happen? The water is going to move much quicker. So the hotter, right, the temperature, the more or the quicker the rate of transpiration. The opposite would then be true. If it's colder, transpiration will slow down. Okay, another thing that will have an effect is light intensity. What do we mean by that? The brighter the light, what happens when there's light? The stomata open. Okay, so when the stomata open with the light, what's going to happen? We have a nice high versus low concentration, and the water is going to, transpiration is going to increase. So the brighter the light, the more transpiration, the greater the speed. This one is usually opposite, humidity. Have a look at my leaf again. Here's my leaf, there's my opening. Humidity means the water vapor in the air. So if I've got water vapor on the inside of my leaf, and I've got water vapor on the outside of my leaf, do you notice that I don't have a very high concentration gradient? So if I don't have a concentration gradient, water, all right, look at my diffusion, what is from a high concentration to a low. So if I don't have this nice gradient, water is not going to move out of the plant. So humidity, so let's put things in. Temperature is going to, hot is going to increase, cold is going to decrease. Bright light is going to increase the rate, darkness, nighttime, dim light, decrease the rate. Okay, so if I have high humidity, okay, if I've got high humidity, I'm going to have a decrease in the rate, or if I have a low humidity, I'm going to have an increase in the rate. Okay, wind. Wind, when imagine the water comes, right, and the wind just blows it away, the water is going to keep replacing it. So if there's lots of wind, okay, wind is going to cause a decrease in the rate of transpiration. And the last one we're going to look at, availability of soil water. Remember, if the water keeps on moving into my plant from my soil, what am I going to do? If it keeps coming in, it's going to keep going out. So the more soil water I have, the greater the rate of transpiration. Okay, so now you need to keep those in mind. Okay, let's start with our questions. Okay, the first question, when you look at it, right, when you look at the question, what do I see? The question first says to me, study the diagram below and answer the questions that follow. Guys, when you look at the diagram, look at the obvious structures that tell you what it is. The obvious structures are here. Soil. If this is soil, all right, and this diagram over here, my root hair, that's going to tell me that this diagram is going to show me a root. Okay, so the first thing I see, I need to have a look at it. What is the most obvious characteristic that I can recognize? And I see here soil. Soil tells me that it's underneath the ground. I also see the characteristic root hair. Where do I find a root hair? I find it in a root. Okay, so what am I going to be doing now? I'm going to be looking at the structure of a root. So what questions can I ask? What questions can I ask? Sorry. Okay, first question. Right, I'm going to give you 1 minute. I want you to answer questions 1 and I want you to answer question number 2. Okay, look at the mark allocations and tell me, all right, and look at what the question is. Okay, I'm going to give you 1 minute. 1 minute, I know it's for 4 marks, but 1 minute, just to get those things, your brain cells clicking over. Okay, your time starts now. Okay, let's see if you managed to get a subtlety on some of the words that we were looking for. Okay, question number 1. I hope that you got the first thing. It said, provide labels for region 3. Okay, so if we go back to our diagram, okay, if we go back to our diagram, oopsie, one too many. Come now, guys, look here. They asked you for the region. So if you guys did parenchyma, you said parenchyma, you are wrong. Okay, they didn't ask you for the tissue. They asked you for the region. So region number 3, your answer should have been cortex. All right, the cortex, the whole region with the different cells. Then tissue number 2, right, let's go back. Tissue number 2, that's where they asked you for the tissue, right? And the tissue number 2 was on the outside, and your answer should have been epidermal tissue. Okay, I think this one might have been a little bit of the one that you battled with. Now, question number 2 says, describe one function of part number 4. Describe one function of part number 4. And part number 4, here we go, is this one over here. Okay, and that is your endodermis with your Casparian strips. So what describe? First of all, what I want you to write is it's the endodermis with Casparian strips, which forces the water to move through and not over the cell walls. Right, so guys, for that question, right, that you then needed to know the Casparian strips. Now you see, if you don't know your anatomy of the root, right, then you don't know how to answer the questions on how water moves through. So you can't afford to leave out, right, any of the sections. Even though you don't enjoy plants, so I tell my class, get over it, right? You need to get over it. Okay, the next set of questions on this one. Okay, diagram again, the diagram again. Okay, question number 3. Identify structure 1, state its function, and explain 2 ways in which the structure adapted for the function. Okay, so let's start. There are 3 things here. Identify structure 1. So we're going to look at it. What does it do? Right, and why does it look like it looks? So I already in my mind thinking, okay, I think I know which one it is. So let's have a look. All right, what is structure? Let's go again. Identify structure number 1. What is structure number 1? Structure number 1 is a root hair. All right, is a root hair. There I've got my 1 mark. Now what is its function? Its function is to absorb water and mineral salts. Okay, now I've got my 2 marks. But the next part, this question is multi-functional, multitasking almost. It's asking you to do 3 things. And in the last thing, it's actually asking you to do 2 more things. And explain. That tells a lot. Explain tells me you must give me reasons why, right? This structure is adapted for its function. In other words, what makes the root hair so special that it can absorb water? The first thing that you should go to, right, is it increases surface area. Look at the root hair, right? As soon as I put that at the end, look at that, all that area over there, I can absorb more water, okay? So I increase surface area. The more surface area I have, the more water, okay? The more water I can absorb, okay? It can absorb. What is its function? Absorb water. So it's made so that it can absorb as much water as possible. What's another thing you can do? You can say it has no cuticle. Why? To absorb water. None of the roots has a cuticle. Cuticle stops water from moving out. Another thing you could say is that it has thin cell wall. What is a thin cell wall? Right? Water can move easier across. So when it comes your last 4 marks, have a look where the mark allocation is. Telling me that it is increased surface area, and then telling me how is this a good adaptation. More water can be absorbed, right? This is the 1 mark, that is your 2nd mark. Okay, 6 marks for that question. So you must make sure, if you've got a highlighter, make sure that you highlight the question, right? That is 1 question. Put a dot or a 1 behind it. State its function. There is the 2nd part of it. And then explain that is the third part of it. And the 6 marks should give you an idea of how much information you need to. If you just did 1 mark and it's for one little sentence and it's for 6 marks, you know that somewhere, right, you haven't put the effort in or you haven't put the right information. Okay, next question. We can ask a lot of questions on this one. Right, the next question is, name the 3 forces which develop in cell D. So if I go to cell D, what is cell number D? Over here, right, and look at the shape of the cells. They are nice and hollow in the center. And I know that cell number D is going to be my xylem. Okay, and with my xylem, what were my 3 I've just asked you to name? Maybe we can describe or explain. And what were my 3 forces? Okay, root pressure, capillarity, and the most important one of all, transpiration. Okay, 3 nice, easy marks. And we still are on this diagram. Do you see, if you don't know, if you don't recognize the diagram, how many marks have you lost? Right, it is essential that you know your organ systems. Okay, next question. Describe 2 adaptions, okay, 2 adaptions of the cells labeled 6. Okay, so let's go back to our diagram. What are 6? Okay, 6 are the xylem. Okay, so now I'm asking you, how are the xylem adapted for their functioning? Okay, and the xylem, first of all, they didn't ask you to write xylem, but if you write xylem down, it kind of focuses you on what you're looking at your question. And if you can remember what we asked for, okay, sorry, wrong one. If you can remember what we asked for, right, we said to you, xylem is made specifically for its function, right, of transporting water. Okay, so what 4 marks there? So hollow. So if it's hollow, water can move through easily. Okay. Okay, it has lignin, strengthened, right? Strengthening against the forces of water. Okay, what else has it got? It is continuous. So water can form one, all right, joined band, if I can use it, one joined, okay, molecule. So when we're looking at the question here, that's 2, you only needed 2, but what did I need to do again? Right, describe, not list, describe. You need to do work for your 4 marks. Tell me, what is the special adaptation and what makes it so special? Okay, and the last one, what type of pathway of water movement is indicated by the arrows? Okay, and I think we might have time. Right, guys, the arrows, it's going through the cells, right? And there are 2 pathways, the symplastic and the apoplastic, and it is the symplastic. Oh dear, we have run out of time. Right, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to spending much more time with this amazing, awesome life science subject. See you next time.